All right, so we are now about a month since the release of Hyper Light Breaker. Now, this game was that roguelike which was made by Heart Machine, the developers who decided to work with Sweet Baby Inc. for some unknown reason. When you play the game, which I did play a little bit of it for myself, it doesn't seem that they really could have had much involvement, but apparently they were brought on for world building, and the world was all transcoded in pinks and purples, so I don't know if that they had some effect on that. The long and the short of it, the game was very forgettable. It actually launched with about 5,000 people playing it at its peak and is down, as you can see right now, to about 39 people playing it with a review score of around 3,000 reviews, putting it at 63% mixed reviews. Not a very good look for a studio that was hoping to bank on the goodwill of their fans from Hyper Light Drifter, which a lot of people really loved that game. But of course, they decided to work with Sweet Baby Inc., which got them more or less boycotted by a lot of the larger gaming community who's aware of the involvement of Sweet Baby and the effects that they have had on the video game industry. Now, of course, today we have another DEI-infested game, Lost Records Bloom and Rage, releasing. Now, of course, something to remember, Bloom is part one. This is these narrative-driven games that are released in multiple parts or episodes, however they want to call them. So today is the release of Bloom, and Rage, which is part 2, comes out in April, I do believe. So of course, people are putting their reviews out there. Some love it, some hate it. But again, something that's important to remember is this is made by Don't Nod Entertainment, the same company that originally worked on Life is Strange before Deck 9 got the job of, trying to work on Double Exposure and a few of the other Life is Strange properties. Of course, which they discovered that Deck 9 Studios wasn't full of woke lunatics, and so of course IGN went out of their way to attack the studio to try to smear them as not being woke enough. Narrative designers at the studio itself were fighting with the upper echelons of the people that ran the company. So of course this was a doomed failure from the beginning. So of course now you can see this trailer from Don't Nod. If you have not watched any of this, I'm going to play a little bit of it for you guys to kind of get a taste of what this game is all about.
Do you girls ever see anything weird around these parts? Back in the day, 27 years was a long time ago.
I've been trying to remember. Something just out of reach.
My mom found a package on her doorstep.
Our Bloom and Rage.
There are some things that
So of course you've got your very mixed cast of strong independent women. Some large, some small, some dark-skinned, some white, some freckled, some have different complexions. It's about the smattering of diversity you'd expect from a game like this.
might not be ready to talk about ever.
Welcome to the premiere of The Swan Show. I'll show you my natural habitat, suburbia.
You, making a movie?
I'm making a documentary.
Sorry, are you rolling?
Whoa! Nice camera.
Leave her alone, loser!
Of course you have the one toxic male that they have to showcase in there, so you kind of get the idea. We don't need to play the full 2 minutes. It is beyond cringe. So now, of course, we are starting to see all the different sites like Games Radar Plus coming out here saying Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, Tape 1 review. This Life is Strange successor is Stephen King, Blair Witch, and Yellow Jackets all rolled into one. Delicious. You've got Gaming Bible saying Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, Tape 1 review. A modern classic emerges. Go figure. They have to put the word modern in there. But if you go over here to Rock, Paper, Shotgun, this review I found very interesting, very telling about a lot of the tropes that they have actually put into this game. A lot of the same kind of crap that we've seen time and time again. This is from Graham Smith over there, who, based on what I'm reading here, he doesn't exactly sound like some anti-wokey. He just simply hates the game as far as I can tell. So we'll go through a little bit of his article here. It says, most writing tries to avoid cliche, understanding that an overused idea is one that has lost its power. Very true. It often feels as if video games take the opposite approach, gleefully piling tropes high upon their back like Labyrinth's junk lady. Enter Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, hunched over from the weight of all the teen TV shows and young adult novels stacked atop its shoulders. You play as Swan, a teenage girl in 1995. Okay. So basically they have their band, and they're just that band of misfits, right? So as a player, you have a camcorder with you at all times, which you can bring out to film short clips of whatever you please. Basically, they're collectibles. You can capture certain characters or scenes, and they form memoirs, brief montage videos, which you can edit by selecting and reordering shots. I didn't feel much freedom or creative spark in doing so, but it's another trope gathered. And it says, prehistoric blogging aside and bar a couple of padlock puzzles, your main interactions lie in dialogue. Swan is in near constant conversation with her friends. Because again, this is this kind of game. This is made for the modern audience. These are not people who play video games. These are people who'd be better suited to watch a movie, but for some weird reason, they make these games for those people. Again, the modern audience. Let's see, it says, individually and in a group, with your choices affecting her relationships in the course of the story, or so we're told via interface elements. Lost Records isn't the kind of game that pivots rapidly and rewards experimentation, and if I encountered consequences to any choice I made, they were opaque, meaning no real stakes in the game, right? In fairness, this is tape 1, and the concluding tape 2, due for release in April. Not much happens plot-wise for the first half of the game. The intent seems to be to let players back in the good vibes of the 4 new friends, but I found it all too slow. If you're going to make a hangout game, those friends better be a good hang, and while Nora, Autumn, and Kat, oh boy, are a likable bunch, they too often felt like the uncomplicated archetypes designed more for projecting yourself upon than being excited to spend time with. Without a clearly branching plot, the most significant feedback you get during conversations is the icon of a heart growing or breaking depending on your dialogue choice. Is it too much to say I hate this? Lost Records is at times cloyingly sentimental, and its characters are concerned with authenticity most of all. And yet the UI scolds the player constantly. There were times when I'd choose a dialogue option because it sounded fun, like I was playing along with a friend, only to be met with a breaking heart. Alright, so none of the characters are up for banter, at least outside of cutscenes, but I can't work out why I would ever want to choose an option that makes one of my friends like me less. Checkpoints are frequent, and redoing a conversation rarely requires you to lose more than a few minutes of progress, and though I endeavor to be authentic to myself, or at least to Swan, I'm too weak not to min-max my friendships even when flattened by the emotional journey and stripped my actions of agency. Basically, it sounds like you don't really have many choices in the game you can actually make, right? So it says, later in the game, we're introduced to the 2022 version of Swan in her car during a phone conversation that makes several references to the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh, here we go. She has a mask with her, too. It's not subtle, but I was immediately engrossed by such a mundane depiction of an event most video games would ignore. The sense of immersion survived about 40 seconds. Swan leaves her car to enter a bar, which has a bottle of hand soap outside and a box of free masks. Great. I interacted with them, and I picked up the box of masks where it became a rotatable object floating in space in the middle of my screen. What does it say about Swan that it's 2022 and she doesn't wash her hands or wear a mask before entering a public space? The budget couldn't cover a bespoke hand-washing animation, probably. What does it say about her that she doesn't worry about transmission via contact with... This guy's a lunatic, and he's crapping on the game. If the wokey, like, leftists don't even like the game, how is any, like, normal video game player supposed to like this? It doesn't say anything, this is just how video games work, almost certainly. But I think those are poor excuses. One of the best pieces of writing advice is every word should tell. Perhaps a corollary for video game narratives might be every interaction should tell. Lost Records design feels like a collection of expected tropes just as much as its story does. I just wish video games would stop turning their protagonists into weird gremlins who go around picking up and rotating trash they found on the ground. Let me see here. It says, is it possible that this video game of young adult tropes and teenage girl protagonists isn't for me? I have a few rebuttals to the idea. It also contains the tired 40-something version of those characters, which I relate to. I'd also argue against it simply because I want to play more of it. I can talk all day about the parts of Lost Record that didn't work for me. If I hadn't been playing it for a review, I probably would have stopped after a couple hours and never gone back. Glowing review from Rock Paper Shotgun. And this is a site where they're probably going to say it's like a 7 out of 10. I haven't seen an official score from them yet. In fact, Metacritic only has one score currently from the critics at a 68 from Mondo Xbox. But what's really telling is if you look at the player counts right now, this game released today. And while there are other games that have gone from early access to, full access like Avowed, currently in game, we have 1,400 people playing with a peak of 1,990. And unlike other games where the trajectory goes up towards the end of the night, and then of course as you work towards the weekend, the number of players will grow and grow, this one seems to have already peaked for the day, which is just mind-boggling. Why do they continue to make this slop? Again, it's for the modern audience, but who's actually paying for these games? Anyways, I'm going to leave it right there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below, and I will catch you guys on the next one.